Hello, this is Joanne Hewins from lovetocreate.typepad.com. Today I have a card and a bookmark that I would like to share with you. This is part of the One Stamp at a Time blog hop. We were to do something called Down on the Farm, and not much of a farm girl, and I was reading through the description and it mentioned Farmhouse Chic. So I Googled that and found that it was something in the style of what maybe Chip and Joanna Gaines would do. And that's what I decided I would do. I thought that would be fun. So let's get started. I have to admit that sometimes I get a little carried away, and I did on this project. It uses lots of product. It is very time consuming. I've tried to do some of this stuff ahead of time, but I just kind of wanted to show you how it all went together. So I'm going to put the bookmark out of the way, and we'll start with the card. For that, I'm using the thick Whisper White. It's cut at 4 1/4 by 11, and I did score that with my trimmer at 5 1/2. I find that the thick paper does better if you score it. But even though you have a score, you still want to kind of match those corners, and then use your bone folder to burnish your fold. So we've got that going. The next thing that we were going to do is a layer of Very Vanilla. So for this, I'm mixing up the Very Vanilla and the white. That seemed to be kind of a thing, and I used the Pinewood Planks embossing folder. This one has the planks going across this way. That's the way I wanted my paper. I've already done it, but I did put it up and down this way, and you want to pay attention to how straight it is because you want your planks to be straight. So this is my attempt at doing a little bit of the shiplap, and to make this look a little bit older, or give it a little more texture, I'm going to take a sponge dauber, and this is actually Smoky Slate that I'm using, and I'm just going to sponge dauber. That's a little bit heavy, but it doesn't matter. Just do it here and there all over the card. You just want it in places. You don't have to do a lot here in the middle because that's going to be covered up. And that just gives a little bit of aging there, and that's probably good enough for that. All right, and then Smoky Slate. And then I'm going to add from the neutrals. This is the Neutrals 6x6 Designer Series paper. I used the basic gray for that, and this piece of the script in the basic gray is cut at 3 by 4. 3 by 4. And I'm just going to add that to the center of the card, or the center of this layer. I'm just going to glue it. And put that right in the center. Tempting to get it straight. It's a good thing about the glue is it does allow you to have a little bit of give. And then I'm going to put a piece of 3/4 inch, and this will end up being around 4. But what I usually do is just add some glue across here. And then I'm going to use my grid paper to help me to get this check on even. So I'm going to put my grid paper, or my layer here, on a grid. And then I'll just make sure that on the other side it's in about the same place. Now, I did cut this piece of Very Vanilla very close to the size of the card itself. And let me talk to you about that. Let me trim this to fit. All right. And I just wanted it to be really close. So I trimmed it to, let's see, that would be, since this is 4 1/4, this would be 4 1/8 that I did that. And this is 5 1/2, so I trimmed that side to 5 3/8. So 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So it really just about covers up the whole top there. And I can go ahead and put this, adhere this. To the front, and I usually get my corners. The glue will allow me to have a little bit of give briefly as I try to put that down. So there's the front part. All right, now the holder for my plants is made using the pocket die. The pocket die carried over from the other catalog, and I used this piece right here, and I cut that out of Whisper White. So this is what you end up getting, and it has some little folds here, but I didn't want my holder to have a point to it. So what I did is I took a trimmer, and with the score thing, I put it at about 2 1/2, I guess, and I just scored straight across there. And then I'm going to cut this straight across about 1/8 of an inch beyond that score line, because I want to have a fold line on that. So if I were now, so how I would fold that now is this little tab would go back, this tab would go back, then the tab at the bottom will go back, and that's going to leave me with these tiny little corner pieces. And to get that to fold right, I'm going to have to cut down this fold to that score in that way, and the same on the other side. So I'm going to cut straight in and out on that score line. And now these will fold back. It's just a very little bit of a fold, but it has that. So that's how I came up with the shape for the pocket. And then you're going to run that through your die cutting machine with the 10 tile embossing folder. Now, to do this, to me it's important that you get this shape centered. So what I do is I take this and I try to get it so that this circle right here is in the center of my pocket. Now that might not make a difference in the outcome of the card at all, but to me it just makes it better to know that things are kind of symmetrical. So run that through the Big Shot or your die cutting machine, and you'll have something that comes out looking like this. And I did refold those folds so that it would look like this. Now, in reading about the Farmhouse Chic, I saw that iron is sometimes something that they decorate with. So I thought about the stained glass dies, and I used this one to cut out a piece of black. And so that's what I have here. And I want to adhere this to the front of my pocket. So I'm going to bring in my silicone craft mat, and I'm going to add in, add a little bit of glue here to the corner, and I'm just going to add some glue with a sponge to the back of my ironwork, and I want to try not to move it if possible. So I'm just going to get a little bit here on my sponge, and I'm going to need this again in a little while, so I'll be coming back to it. And then I'm going to get across here, and then I'm going to adhere this, get this out of the way for right this minute, to the top of the pocket like that. So there's the ironwork. Now I also added some twine to this, and you might be thinking about the fact that we don't have any granny apple green twine. I'm not going to go to the trouble of doing all of that right now, but I will show you how I did it. I took our white twine that we do have and colored that with the light granny apple green blend. And all you have to do is just color over that, and you may have to kind of turn it around and get the back side and just color until you have what you need. So I'm going to go ahead and make this card today without that twine across there, saving the time. So you just figure out how much you need and color, and you probably do need to let that dry just a little bit before you actually use it. So that's the granny apple green twine. I put a length around and then later tied a bow and added that with a glue dot. Let's talk about getting our pocket onto our card. And for that, I'm going to use dimensionals. And I wanted to keep these folds so that it would actually look like it was a 3D thing. I've got something on there, but it's okay. And so I'm adding my dimensionals kind of out a little bit from the fold. So it's still going to stick to the card, but that other will kind of be turned under a little. So I'm going to be kind of lenient with those and just get around. Okay, and then we'll get the tops off of those. Okay, probably if I get my picky tool, I can get those off a little faster. Okay, and so I'm just going to kind of keep that folded and add it to my card front. I want to get it below here just a little, but centered. Just kind of fold that under and attach. Okay. Okay, so there's your pocket on there, and I can go back and add that bow when I get ready to do that. All right, that gets us to our greenery and flowers that we have on the inside of the card. So let's talk about that for a moment. And I wanted to use the granny apple green color. I didn't want it to be quite as concentrated or as dark. And so what I decided to do was to color some watercolor paper. Now I'm going to admit to you that this is not the new kind of watercolor paper that Stampin' Up! Has. I haven't ordered that yet. This is our old watercolor paper, and let me talk to you about what I did. Let me set these out of the way. I took a block and the paper, a spritzer, and my Granny Apple Green ink, and I'm going to spritz part of this paper and leave part of it not spritz, so you can kind of see the difference. And I'm going to get the ink on my block. I'm going to spritz that a little bit, and then I'm just going to add it to the paper. And what I was after, I'm really making a mess here, but what I was after was getting some of it that was more solid and some that was more speckled kind of looking. So I would have a variety on my paper. And of course you're going to have to let that dry before you can cut out of it. So I'm going to set that aside. And I'm just going to bring in some of the others that I used working with other cards. Get that out of the way. So, I liked having the darker for the longer leaves, and then I liked having some of the speckled for the smaller things. So I really went ahead, I even used some that was not colored very much at all, just so I would get a variety. So I'm going to put these aside and bring out some of the things that I've already cut. For these longer leaves, I tried to get them so that they were a more solid green. And then I did cut out 3 of these for the front of the card, just from Very Vanilla. And then I have about 6 of these that I cut out for the front of the card. And you can see they're just variations in color for that. So let me show you what I used. I used the Bouquet Bunch dies for this, and this piece is what I used to cut the longer stems. And then these smaller flowers, there's a little group of larger flowers and a group of smaller. The smaller flowers are what I used to get these. So the Bouquet Bunch dies. So you can see I did use a variety of things for the card. So I'm going to pull back in this card, try to put it on this side so maybe it won't get the green on it. And we're going to add these pieces. So I'm going to pull back in my silicone mat with the glue. We may need to add a little bit more glue in a minute. And I'm going to put 3 of these longer stems on here. I'm going to do those first. So I'm just going to kind of turn that on the back. And kind of add that in. And if I need to, I can trim this stem to get it down in there easier. Okay. And then we'll put the other one. I'm going to add a little bit more glue. So I kind of just did those, the 2 sides and one kind of in the middle. And then just add these other pieces in wherever. So I'm going to have them coming kind of out of the out of the pocket. Oops. The only thing about this is I get sticky on my hands too, so they don't want to come up. Plus, I guess I'm getting some sticky on the front. Okay. There's one that's got a lot of white in it. And then we're just going to kind of build up. On our flowers. And I am using actually a piece of my silicone mat I had used before for some other gluing, and I really hadn't cleaned it very well, so. And really that might be enough. I'll put this other one on there. And then just add in these other little pieces. Here and there, and you've got it. Cut the end off of that one. And then that one probably goes somewhere like that, or you could actually, what I want to do is cut that end off. And maybe kind of go under. Maybe even under. That might be a little too tall. Maybe we'll cut off up into there. Okay. All right. So that gets pretty much the front of the card done for you. The other thing is the hello. That is done with the To a Wild Rose stamp set. This is the hello, and just take that stamp it on a scrap of Whisper White. Okay, I thought I had a scrap. I don't see it right now, but it's okay. So, just stamp that on a scrap of Whisper White, and then you're just going to use your scissors to cut around that word and then glue it onto the front of the card. So there you go with pretty much how to do the front of the card. Let's talk for a minute about the bookmark then. And let me get some of this out of the way. I told you I used a lot of supplies. For the bookmark, you're going to have a piece of thick Whisper White that is 2 by 6. And you're also going to have a piece of the basic gray that is 2 by 6. And I'm going to glue this, glue these two layers together. Or you could use snail. But you want it to be glued on there pretty good. So I'll add that. And then we'll glue that together. And then we're going to bring in this new delightful tag topper punch. This is brand new in the catalog this year. And I'm going to put that in. to the punch and make sure it's all the way in to the end and punch that out for our tag. Now, I also took a piece of Whisper White, and this is 1 inch by, I didn't even measure it, but 1 inch. And I did use the 10 tile again to do this. And do you see how I have that flower going all the way down the center? So I did really work at putting mine in there and getting that even before running it in. Now, I could have added this to my card before I did the tag topper punch, but I could see that it was going to be a little bit hard to punch that much. So what I'm going to do is put this in, and I'm not going to take it all the way to the end. I'm just going to punch it here, and then we'll add this to the top of the card. So I'm just going to get my glue again. I'm going to make sure it glues here, and then we'll just glue it all the way down. And I'll add it here so that it matches. And I can use the grid of the check to make sure that that's straight. And then again, I'm just going to turn this on the back and trim it to fit. Okay, so there's the basic bookmark. For this center part, I used the Starburst punch and a piece of the script of the basic gray, and just punch out a circle, and that's going to go on here with dimensionals. Oh, I forgot to say something about the using the sponge and the gray again. So you would take, okay, you know, oh, there it is. You know how when you've got all your stuff strewn out, how you can't find it? Or maybe you don't. For me, it's always just behind something. So I'm just going to take this, and I probably should have done this before I added it to the bookmark. But I'm just going to take it and add a little bit more of this to just make it look more like a Farmhouse Chic. This would go on dimensionals. So I'm just going to bring in some big dimensionals. To put that on. And then you would just add some more of the stems that you did from that you cut out of the watercolor paper. So you would have some kind of stem like this. I think I trimmed off the end just a little. Add this piece. Add a couple of the little flowers on there. And you're just going to do that the same way as I did before with the glue. And then add the word love across here. So that's a lot of gluing, a lot of stuff there. But look how pretty it looks. And the love comes from the well-written die. Sorry, let me reach over. And it's this one. And I just cut that out of the black again. Okay. So, like I said, quite a few different products on this card. All right, let's talk one more thing, and then I think we'll have it done. Or two more things. I did use my smoky slate, my light smoky slate marker blend to color in more of the white twine and the smoky slate for this up here. So again, you're just going to take the big end, just drag it across your twine, and you may have to roll it to get the back side or whatever, and then just do as much as you need to get that done. But we're not going to go ahead and do all that right now. Let's talk about this ribbon. This is the Granny Apple Green textured weave ribbon, and what I have is about 3 inches of that ribbon. And let me show you what I did. I took and cut down the white piece here on both sides for about 1 inch, and I did that on both ends. We'll just do one end for now. And then I just pulled out the fibers to make that fringe out. So I used my Take Your Pick tool, just kind of did that. It did tear up my back paper, but that's okay. And then just pull out those extra fibers. You can actually pull those white pieces apart a little